And speaking of trying new things, you mentioned before that New and Tasty was kind of the freshest game you had been a part of recently. Is Soulstorm even more original in a certain sense and creative than
Soulstorm's a new game.
Yeah, so I mean, how would you describe that? Because like I was, you looked through a lot of press stuff, and I saw the words like horrifying, terrifying, complete story retake. Is it a tonal shift? Like what are your kind of goals for what Soulstorm is going to be?
It's interesting because first what happened was we polled the audience, and when we said it earlier, we said, if we do New and Tasty well, what do you want us to do next? And we don't think we'll have the money to do a fully new title, but what would you like us to do next based on, our recent behavior? And then we gave them like a list of 5 titles to poll on, and we got, thousands and thousands of responses, but they said Abe's Exodus. And we were like, wow. Okay, well, if we can sell, 250,000 units, we'll focus on a remake in that direction. We sold more than 250,000 units, and we started off thinking, okay, how do we remake Exodus? But here's what happened. The fact was that the way Exodus was originally made was not the way Exodus was originally envisioned, necessarily at a story level. There was this brew was supposed to be an active part of the game, and a flammable brew. And that was, I'll just say, I don't want to say a lot more on it, but that was supposed to be an integral part of the evolution of play in that side-scrolling platform universe that we created. Yeah. And in reality, we had to do it in like 9 months. So we did a bigger game than Odyssey, and instead of taking 3.5 years, we had to deliver it in 9 months. That was business conditions. That was publisher needs. Shit happens. That was the legacy.
Yeah. That had to be exhausting too in 9 months. Jeez.
Yeah. It was a killer. It was a killer. And we were sprinting from the beginning to the end, and I don't like what it does to certain people. It burns them out. Different people have different priorities in life. They should, like raising their kids, maybe.
Yeah, that seems important.
And, kind of important. And so, no one should really have to work those types of conditions. But there we were, survive and try and do a great job or just quit. I mean, those are kind of your choices in those circumstances. Game development's hard. You hear all the horror stories and stuff. Yeah. But so we looked at it and I go, I don't want to tell the Abe's Exodus story again because Abe's Exodus wasn't the story I wanted to tell. And I think about it like a film director first, and maybe that sounds weird being a game designer, but I think about it in terms of story arc, character evolution, and where's this whole property going. And I was like, wow, well, if we look at Exodus as an inspiration, like we look at the story as I liked the idea of shutting down Soulstorm Brewery. I liked the idea of what was supposed to be happening at a meta level. But the implementation is I feel like its time has passed. Mm-hmm. And with New and Tasty, I felt like Odyssey was kind of like a fable that was appropriate to leave it intact the way it was, this lyrical, poetic, contained piece, kind of like a Dr. Seuss story. It's a story, it's lyrical. Don't change green eggs and ham, right? Like, please don't mess with it. But if you want to bring us a new version of CG, cool. But it better be green eggs and ham, like, I don't want to hear a new rhyme there. I know the lyrics, right? So for what we did was we got started on how to approach it, where we use Exodus as a story inspiration. And from that, beyond that, it's all new. And it's a new game. Now, that's getting us in a little bit of trouble, because it's like, shit, time and energy and new technology to build. And we're building on top of the the New and Tasty technology. Now we're in physically based rendering. I mean, the image qualities, it's up. I think there's a lot of surprises with what's coming. We hope to have some announcements fairly soon.
Yeah, I mean, you've been releasing some screenshots, and it looks amazing. Like, it looks...
Have we released screenshots?
There's like some little... Not screenshots of the game, more of Abe himself.
That was just Abe, right? So far we've only teased that's Abe's new resolution. And we were teasing kind of where this is going, and it's way more intense and sort of shocking of a game, but it's still really dark humor. You know, I mean, it's just really out of hand.
There's something that makes it almost darker when it's at that high of a fidelity for a character like him. There's something when I saw it, and I'm like, oh, this is like what this is really supposed to be. Like, it's another level of that.
Well, thank you. And what we were doing was we were like, okay, if I showed you, and at some point we will, when we do like a developer diary or something, when we show you what Abe looked like as a gray model in New and Tasty versus what he looks like now, which is the images re-released. It's like, oh my God. But you have to look at it as we were looking at it. If we say, well, we need to res him up, and he needs to be more Abe than Abe, right? So before, I feel like we were dealing with sort of a symbol of Abe, and now I feel like we're actually nurturing the life form of Abe.
Yeah,
that we wanted to really increase that resolution, really increase that believability, because we want the emotional performance to be more heavy.
Yeah.
Right. And that doesn't mean the humor's gone. It doesn't mean we're not total wise asses of how we unfold play, because we are, and that just got a lot worse. I can guarantee.
Yeah, it wouldn't be Oddworld without that.
It's going to be messed up, man. But it's way more emergent in what it does this time. Now people can be like, man, he's talking shit, but he's not saying anything. Well, I'm not. I'm waiting because hopefully we make a little bit of, we need to we have to be strategic, because let me put it this way, back to the independent developers, begging plea out there of please understand what we're dealing with. We don't have advertising budgets.
Yeah.
So what we have to do is, we got onto the stage at the Indie Showcase in 2013 with Sony. We got invited to be on the stage. We need stuff like that. We have to build games that are cutting through enough so that that the stores that sell these games, even if it's Android and iTunes, iPhone, right, iOS, even if it's Android or Apple, those stores, they are going to promote the top quality content for free to their audience, because they need to show that there's cool stuff here, right? We are able to surf that need and give them something. If you look at our games, everywhere they're 4.5 stars.
Yeah.
Right? And so we rely on that. If we did a 3.5 star level game, we're not going to get the generosity of the networks promoting us for free. And that's how it has to be, because like other indies, we don't have an advertising budget, right? So we have to really strategically, if we're going to make a big announcement, we can't have blown it early, or we might not get support for bigger entities, and we really need that support for exposure.
That word of mouth exposure too, which is so massive for an indie game, where, if, like you said, if it's a 3-star quality, people are like, oh, you can skip it. And again, that mentality of I'll get it when it's free. But when it's a Firewatch, Gone Home, Bastion 5-star thing, people are like, no, you need to experience this. It becomes such a, everyone's talking about it on Twitter, everyone's talking about it just on different sites, where you're like, I need to be a part of this conversation.
Yes. And case in point, when Stranger's Wrath released, which we had a lot of trauma around and a lot of bitterness around with the publisher relationship, it's all been over talked about. But when it released, my friends, co-designers, owners of other developers didn't even know the game released.
God.
Right? So that's how you get buried. That's how you get eclipsed. That's how you can get screwed. So you have to, and that was high quality, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have enough high quality that networks want to promote you, because they know you've got good product that their customers are going to be happy with if they just know about it. And so we have to rely on that. So we can't talk about that much right now, because we will basically blow our wad early. Whether it's network distribution partners, we won't get other people helping to expose us, and we really need that if we're going to be successful and if we're going to keep on building games. So I'm being a little tight-lipped about it, but I can say this, and if I'm wrong, crucify me later, right? But I can say we have never been in this good a place this early in development, meaning what we are playing is something we haven't played before. We haven't exactly seen before. It's evolutionary. It's not revolutionary. It's built on the new and tasty sort of style of play. It's built on top of that engine, but now it's doing the PBR rendering. It's doing this and that. And we're taking more advantage of where the hardware systems are going. So we want to be able to expand, what is Sony calling theirs? We're not exactly sure yet, right? Is 4.5? Is it Neo?
Yeah, Neo, PlayStation 4K is kind of this silly thing going around.
Maybe it is, I don't know. But and this is going to lead, you opened with these questions talking about, you were asking me earlier, we'll talk about some of where we think that hardware cycle is going and what's going on. But we wanted to have a core that was way more emergent, way more intense, and way more sort of shocking and hilarious. And we wanted that to be in place. So we wanted, if in New and Tasty you could solve, in the original game Abe's Odyssey, you might be able to solve puzzles one way, at times one way. And then in New and Tasty, there became multiple ways you could solve any problem. Now in this game, there's going to be many more ways different players will solve the same problems. And that means we need more physics, we need more dynamic stuff and more physics-based stuff happening in the game so we can get more emergent possibilities so that if you play and you're doing a Twitch stream, there's something really unique about the way you're playing that makes it more engaging for other people to watch.
Yeah, and not to sound dramatic at all, but is there almost a redemptive nature to what you're doing with Soulstorm? And by that I mean you talk about how Abe's Exodus was kind of this 9-month project where it didn't exactly come out exactly the way you envisioned it. Does this almost feel like a second crack at something that you really felt passionate about before?
Yeah. And I don't want to take anything away from the team. The team did an amazing job on that original Abe's Exodus. The Metacritic was high. It worked out. We sold units, all that stuff. People were happy. But I felt like it was suffering from what I call sequelitis. And it's exactly what it did suffer from, in my opinion, as the creator, which was as the primary, creative driving force. A lot of people participate in the creation of that game. I never want to take any of that validity away from them. So that being said, but as the director, I felt like time and circumstance was squeezing it into. I need a script by, Sherry would tell me, we need the script done in 9 to 10 days. And then we got to execute on it, and that's what we have to live with. So do the best job you can in that amount of time. And that's not how you get the best script, right? You get the best script of like, shit, someone's been cooking a long time, and they learn this and that, and they go back to it, and all these iterations, and finally you get something, that's The Godfather, right? You're just like, wow, man, what a script, And so what I call sequelitis, which is rarely is the story as good as the original, particularly in movies, because the deadline becomes more important than a great story, right? Because now they're building on a known brand, et cetera, et cetera. And we were one of the biggest hits for the publisher for Abe's Odyssey that year. Other people fell through. Other big titles fell through and didn't deliver for Christmas, which meant the publisher took a huge stock hit in terms of their Wall Street value. And then they were like, guys, you're the one that came through for us. You got to come through for us next year because we're not sure who we can rely on. And you're like, oh, man, that wasn't the plan, but okay, we're all in this together. We try and be good partners. And that's what happens. And that's what happens in Hollywood every day. They're like, oh, that movie was great. Matrix was great. Guys, give us another one in 2 years, whatever the circumstance was. But feel free to spend a lot more money this time because we know we're going to make it back. Well, as we all know, not one of those movies was as good as the original.
No.
Right? But they had way more money. They just had different sets of pressures because now they're pressured to deliver another Matrix branded movie, not a great movie. And so they're trying to make it great, but time, is how great can the script be by Saturday? That's the one we're going to go with.
And yeah, when do you think we can expect more on that? Because again, it's really exciting to hear you talk about this game in the way that you have, because you seem to be, when you're enthusiastic about something, that's always great to hear, and I'm happy that it's not this 9-month sprint where people are kind of crunching to a point where you're not getting the result you want. It seems like you said, you're at a great place. So,
so this year this time we'll have a 12-month sprint.
Exactly, it's way better. But what's the feeling on when we're going to see more?
Within 6 months, we should have a pretty significant announcement, right? So before, let's say in the fall, and in the fall we'll have an announcement. and then we'll be showing where we're at. And I think we're ahead of where most people think we would be. I mean, we were at E3 and we're showing partners. You know, we're showing. When I say partners, I mean network partners. You know, we're showing Asian territories, European territories, different console makers. You know, and all of them are like, you're way ahead of where we thought you would be, you know, like
that's a great thing to hear.
Like, holy shit. Yeah. And we're like, great. You really feel like holy shit? And they're like, yeah, holy shit. And then we're like, okay, great. You know, then we're on the right track. But we are further ahead. We are on way more stable technology. We did, you know, we've learned a lot in 20 plus years of making games, right? So we've learned a lot. And even though we're switching studios, we went from Jaw in UK, you know, bless them. We had, you know, we helped finance the studio to get through making games with us, you know, to become what they are. But we had such a mountain to haul on this one that we had to bring it closer to home. So we're working with Fremont in Quebec City. Yeah. They're excited to work with us, and they're doing a great job. There's a lot of learning there, but we're able to bring a lot of knowledge to sort of, you know, mutually get what we each want, and everyone wants to evolve themselves. So that's really synergistic. And, you know, we have a really ambitious, we feel like we need to be out in 2017. We can't let that go into 2018. This is too long. So we need to make that happen. We've got an ambitious target, but on the code base, on a game design level base, on the story base, you know, we're excited about what's there. And so while it's inspired, you know, Soulstorm Brew is a key. That's why this one's called Soulstorm. It's a key to the inspiration, but it's an all new game. And it's Oddworld in a way we haven't quite played before. But it builds on exactly what we played in New and Tasty, meaning, you know, it's the tried and true platformer. It does some things, but we're doing more dynamic, emergent stuff that gives it a lot more ways to play. We're stressing more of how Abe wants you to play. For Oddworld fans, it's like Abe wants you to get through this experience without killing anyone.
Yeah.
Not even the bad guys. Right? Wow. And then we're going to give you the ability to kill everyone. So we have a whole gauntlet in between of possibilities, you know, and different ones way heavier on the soul. So, you know.
Yeah, it sounds great. Again, it's exciting to hear something like this new is coming from you guys. Last important question.
Yes.
Are you still doing a lot of voice work for the game?
Oh, absolutely. You know, that's our model. I mean, not me doing voices, but trying to get, you know, I'm doing voices. Michael Bross is doing voices. We'll see how many other people are doing voices. There's some YouTubers doing voices.
Oh man.
So some, you know, fans that are like, we offered them the ability to get in there and have some fun with us. We did that last time with the audience itself. We had fans, you know, supply voices, and then we went through it all. But it was such a hard process, just vetting, you know, listening, managing that hundreds and hundreds of submissions. Managing it is just like, man, it's just too much, you know. Yeah. It was too much work for us. But it was fun to see the fans participate. They got in the game. They got free games out of it, you know. But I always looked at it like Jim Henson, you know, which is all those voices in the Muppets. Mm-hmm. They were the puppeteers.
Yeah.
So if you were going to be the animator, you had to do the voice. So being a puppeteer meant more than just operating the action. You had to actually play out the character.
Yeah, you had to be that character as well as, you know, actually animate and you're kind of doing the entire thing for it.
Exactly. And so, you know, Oddworld was kind of very much inspired by Jim Henson. And others, but Mel Blanc, you know, and I was like, well, you know, they didn't go around and hire Brad Pitt to do the voice, you know. when I watch Brad Pitt doing an animated movie, it just doesn't resonate for me. You know, Bruce Willis being a raccoon. I hear Bruce Willis.
That's the huge issue. It's like, oh no, you are Jack Black. You're not some, I don't know, guinea pig in this movie. Like, it doesn't work.
Yeah, you know, Pixar does it better because, you know, I look at or South Park even does it better. You know, I remember watching a South Park episode one time, and in the episode there was a dog, and a dog occasionally went woof, 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 right? And then you get to the end, and you read the credits. It's who's the biggest movie star today?
Oh, jeez. Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
No, the one who came from the one who came from the medical show on TV.
Oh God.
Jasmine, help me out here. Who's the came from medical TV series and then became George Clooney?
Oh, jeez. Okay, yeah.
Sorry to bother you. I keep bothering Jasmine.
I like it.
But so he as you read the woof was brought to you by George Clooney. Woof, woof. I mean, I love shit like that.
That's amazing.
Looney Tunes, Mel Blanc was like mind-blowing voice artist. He could do anything. He did Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam. All those were one guy, right? Amazing stuff. And then I watched DreamWorks start making animated movies. Well, let me say, so Pixar, you still have these characters that would come from the animation group. I think his name's slipping me right now. Gee, what a surprise! But he did I'm watching you, and Mark Silvestri, and he was an animator, right? And he's doing one of the coolest voices in the movie. I'm watching you.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll find that talent within instead of reaching for someone who's known.
Yeah. And even, if you go with someone, like if I was going with someone who's known, I'll be like, look, if it's not a character, if it's you, no, I'll do you as a character.
Yeah.
You got to give me a character like Mel Blanc or something like that, and to which Brad Pitt would say, piss off. And to which I'd say, I can't afford you anyway. So, what's the point? But yeah, so we like to try and have fun with the voices. We oftentimes get into part of the reason is if you deal with the scripts, you're all doing predictive assumptions. You predict that the script is right, but when you actually play the game, it might not. It might have to change. Then you got to go back to the agencies in Hollywood. Then you got to go back to SAG. Now you're trying to get that actor, but he's on a set somewhere. So in order to have him re-record this voice, you're now paying 5 times as much. It's just a Hollywood inflation game, right?
Yeah.
And we were like, no, we know we're going to change the script. Tons of times to delivery. Because we're making games, man. There's all kinds of surprises. Some of them good, a lot of them not so good. And so we need to adapt. And if we're staying locked to a script that we can't change and is going to really up the budget if we do, we're going to be in trouble. So let's try to avoid that model. So as Oddworld, we've never signed on and used SAG actors. We've only used people that were either fans. Sometimes those fans were celebrities, but they did it for free. Right? The last game had a few different celebrities in there, actors and musicians. And they love our games, and so they were willing to do it. And we're like, this is kind of our model, We're not cheap. I mean, we're kind of doing it cheap, but we kind of are cheap because that's all we got, And what you find is that people want to participate. And if we can do that again and again, that's the model. And that way, when we go into the sound booth, we go, I'm talking to Michael Bross, right? He's doing the audio again. He did the audio on Munch's Odyssey. He wrapped it up, and then he did Stranger from beginning to end. He helped deliver New and Tasty's audio, and on this one he's handling the whole thing. But he does a lot of voices, so he does townsfolks in Stranger. He does Mudokons, and he's great with voices. So he and I will get in there, we'll write something, and then we're doing it in the booth, and it's just not funny. So we just start ad-libbing until we get something that's funny.
Yeah. And
we can do that. And then we come back 6 months later and we go, oh shit, story changed and this changed to make this better. We got to get back in the booth, dude. And then
you have that freedom.
We
don't have to go call Brad Pitt again and be like, hey, I need to pay you double now because we need to change this.
Exactly. And we don't have any illusions as to how complicated it is. But we've tried to forsake the complications for sake of, in exchange for having flexibility and being able to tune and adapt to the end. Because it is a real fuzzy science. You show me a game that is designed to be a hit from paper, and I'll show you a lie.
Yeah.
Right? Meaning a great game is partially discovered along the way, and it adapts. And we feel all kinds of games that somehow the heart and soul is just missing. Something that just doesn't jive. And a lot of times they just executed on what the plan was. But they didn't pivot, they didn't adapt, they didn't change, they didn't go, it's just not working. Right? If you watch the outtakes to 40-year-old version, what they did was they shot the script. It was like the first thing they shot. And then they just said, just do it over and over and over until we're laughing. Right?
Yeah.
And so if you remember the scene where they're on the couch playing and they're like, you know how I know you're gay? Like they were doing all these jokes on each other. That was all improv. They just came. The director was smart enough. He's like, these guys are hilarious, man. Let's just put them on the couch. They're gamers. And most of the scenes were done this way. They'd shoot the script, and then they'd shoot variations based on actors' impulses being on the scene, and based on the set's reactions. Are we all laughing? If you've watched comedy writers for television series, it's like 12 writers in the room. There's not one writer. There's like 12 writers in the room, particularly comedy. Mm-hmm. And these guys they just batting around, throwing out ideas until the whole room starts laughing. They go, that's it, we're going with that one. Next.
Yeah. That's probably where most great humor moments from movies, from television shows come from, is that moment where they're going back and forth, they're, moving it around, they say, oh, that's what's funny, that's what makes us all laugh here, and that was not even remotely close to what the script said.
Exactly, and that's like an emergence, right? That's an emergent thing, and it's unpredictable. But what happens is you get the chemistry in the room and you start learning, and then it starts educating, and you find greater possibilities. It's not like someone goes, hey, man, I've been working on this joke for 2.5 years. Let me read it for you. Chances are that joke sucks.
Yep.
right. But, there you go.
Yeah. Lorne, I could probably talk to you for like 4 hours, like every month, just to get an update on the industry and everything. But I don't want to keep you any longer. Again, I'm looking forward to hearing more about Soulstorm. It just sounds really exciting. And I'm super happy that your team is so kind of energized by it. So again, you said, was it 6 months we'll hear more about it?
Within
6 months. All right.
In the fall, we'll have announcements, and we'll have footage, and we'll have this stuff.
All right. I would love to have you on again at some point, either when it releases, before it releases, to continue to talk about it, because again, it's a super fun thing to talk about.
Hey, my pleasure. It's always fun being on, Josiah.
Absolutely. Thanks again, and thanks everyone for listening, and hopefully tune back in for the next episode of the 1099.